find a pen and fill the paper with the message that it wants to send.
So welcome to the Aviatrix Writer's Room. I'm continuing my conversation with Meghan P. Browne, who is the author of 3 books, 2 of which have been published so far. And the one that we've highlighted today is Dorothy the Brave, about WASP Dorothy Lucas. It's a beautiful book. I highly recommend it to everyone. So Meghan, when you decided that you were going to write professionally, how did you hone your craft, and at what point did you decide that a Master of Fine Arts was going to be right for you?
I took my first class at the Writing Barn in Austin. It was an in-person class. They have lots of offerings that are online. This was pre and post pandemic that they made those offerings, so they're very good by now with those. And I did one of those classes, then 2 intensives there where I learned a ton of information. I read a lot of, at the time my kids were very little, so I was like reading a lot anyway, just as like matter of being a mom of young kids and reading lots of books. But then the publishing thing actually happened fairly quickly for me, which was very lucky, I realized, and serendipitous in a lot of ways. I got a contract for Dorothy the Brave and Indelible Anne with 2 different imprints just about a year after I kind of started my venture. And then I panicked and I was like, oh gosh, I do not know what I'm doing. And so I was talking with my husband about what to do with my advance. And I, at the time, had been having actual dreams about going back to school. These were more like panic dreams about being back on the swim team at the University of Arizona and pregnant, which I don't know why that's always my like naked in front of the school. It's not that, it's pregnant, but on the swim team as as a 30-year-old or something. So anyway, I was having these dreams of going back to school, and I said, maybe I just need to like backfill my understanding of children's literature at more speed. And I felt like an MFA program was going to help me get there. And Kate Berry, who lives in Austin, had just presented at our local SCBWI conference and talked about Vermont, and Bethany Hagedis, who owns the Writing Barn, she also attended as an alum. And so I felt like that was a natural place for me to research. And that's what I did with my advance money, was I put it toward my first couple of semesters, and the rest is history.
Okay, so I met you in 2019, and you were where January of 2019, and where were you in your program at the time? Like
I was like
semester?
second semester.
So let's just for anybody who's listening, who let's just give a plug for Vermont College of Fine
Let's do
Arts,
it.
which is just like a magical place for anybody who is thinking about writing for children and young adults. It's a very small class size. It is a low residency program where you go for 10 days in January and July
July.
of
Mhm.
every year, when we're doing things in person. So
Which we
obviously,
are in starting in July.
oh, that's so great. I was so bummed to not be able to. So you graduated in January
I graduated in July.
of last year.
Yes. And I
Okay.
actually went out there with one of my classmates because we felt safe enough to travel there, and just we rented a house and we went up to the campus and saw a few people. And a few of the faculty do live in Vermont, not many, but a few do. And so we got to see some folks and walk around campus, and we just were so sad because we had done our original residency. Our very first residency was on campus, and then we had that winter one where I met you in January, where like, as I remember, during that residency, I would wake up in the morning and run, which is crazy because it's like winter in Vermont. But I do love running, and so I would go work out, and I would come back to my room, and I remember listening to NPR and hearing about all the news out of Wuhan, and I was like, oh no, what's happening? But it hadn't really hit us yet, right? And so we were just weeks away from the shutdown at that point. So then the following July, it was remote, which worked fine. The next January was remote again. And then the following July, I just DIY'd a residency up there for graduation. But
So it's so funny. I'm just going to mention that when my roommate Liz Burgess and I got to Vermont, I use the word reported because I was a military girl.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I reported to Vermont. I
Yep.
reported in. And I got my barracks assignment and my roommate assignment, and
Yep.
both of us were like, "Where's the gym?"
And that gym
And
there.
they were
Oh
like,
my gosh,
"What?
did
What?"
you go?
Yeah,
Did you go to
well,
that gym?
no. Which one? The one down in town or the one?
No, the one on campus. Have you been
Yeah,
to that
no, that's
dungeon?
not
Oh
even
my
a thing.
gosh.
Yeah, so I was when I met you, I was like, oh, this is the girl, like one of the other like two people at Vermont College partners who needs to get her workout in when
Yes.
she's at residency.
Yeah. I was like, does anyone want to go snowshoeing? And they're like, aren't you from Texas? I was like, I've never been before, but I'm willing to take it up in this circumstance. Like, I need
Yeah,
some endorphins.
anything. Anyway, so the whole point though of Vermont College is that it is a gorgeous place. You talked about advisors earlier. You talked about Jane Kurtz, but anybody who is writing for children and young adults, I highly recommend the experience. It is a beautiful place with beautiful people, and it is the warmest, most supportive environment that you will ever find for writing for children and young adults. So
And
there's the plug.
that's a good plug. And I'll add to that plug that if you're wanting to just maybe dip your toe in and you're interested in picture book, you can apply to be a part of the picture book intensive and not be a part of the MFA program. So if you would like to apply for the picture book intensive, I think they may have actually started doing it both summer and winter residencies now. It used to only be you would start in the summer. But look into that if you're interested in writing picture book, because you can commit to just the picture book intensive semester. And then, like my picture book intensive semester that I did with Jane, one of my fellow classmates, you kind of have like a small group that you work with throughout that semester. It's different than the other semesters that you do there. But she had just signed up for the picture book intensives on a standalone, and she decided to continue on with the program. But if you're just interested in like, I'm not really sure I want to commit to the whole MFA, it's kind of expensive, or it's a big commitment that I'm not sure that I have the time for, the picture book intensive is a good way to, if you're interested in picture book, to see if it's something that you really want to do.
Oh, that's so super helpful because I didn't even know that. And I will say, like, when you talk about semesters being different, the one semester that I did, the poetry intensive, was a
Mm,
very different look for me too, and it stretched me creatively in ways that I never expected. So,
yeah.
anyway, if you want to really amp up your writing, your craft, and also your exposure in the field, because I mean, I feel like Vermont is one of two very highly regarded programs in the field that will get you in front of agents if that's you already had some, but
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
like it offers the combination of community, of craft, and also of connection
Yeah. The
in ways
network
that
there is strong on.
exactly.
Yes.
Which is what you want. Like if you're going to pay for a master's degree program,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
kind of the product that you want. So yeah,
Yes.
it's really worth it. So you are the mother of three children, and you have a little farm going on there. So you're a busy lady. So tell me about your writing life. What does it look like?
This is a good question, and I feel like it's always evolving. I think what I really need is like a little standalone building somewhere on these 10 acres to put my writing stuff, because like right now I'm in, we call this the laundry desk. So to my left is all of my folded laundry that hasn't been put away. And the pantry is behind me, and this is the door that the kids use. And so like this is a busy place. I do some writing here. I also, we have a guest bedroom that I go to sometimes, but I have found that I'm stealing moments at this venture right now at this stage of my life. I'm like writing on my phone in the carpool pickup line at school. I am writing when I can at like the car wash. I am journaling when I'm at the doctor's office. It's been hard for me to really settle into a specific routine, and I I thrive on routine. So I'm not really sure why that is. Like I get up and run my dog most days, but for whatever reason, being able to, and I think it is my life stage, maybe, I'm not really sure, but like sitting down to do the thing can be really hard, especially when I'm doing it at home, because I look around, I'm like, oh, I should put that laundry away, or oh, I should, do this, that, and the other for the PTA or whatever it is. There's so many things going on in life. Make my grocery list or what, all of the things, right? There's so much mental load that we all carry throughout the day. So I will say that part of the reason I did the MFA program was to help myself establish a routine that worked. And what I found is that I do my best work when I'm not writing at home. So if I can schedule time to go to a cafe and sit and work and not be distracted by all of the rest of my life, I have the best success. I also have one of my classmates from Vermont College just moved to Austin, and she has been coming over every week for like a couple hours. And that's pretty much the most productive writing time I have at home, is if I have somebody here keeping me accountable. So I know a lot of people do this like over Zoom too. I'm not sure that that would work for me, but I actually do that sometimes with some friends here in town. If like we can't get together, we will Zoom, and it works okay. But I find that I do my best writing at home if I have someone here to keep me accountable, or so that I'm not distracted, or if I'm like at a cafe. That's just me.
Oh, so interesting. In terms of like what I was looking for, and why I needed to do a Master of Fine Arts program, were the things that you talked about, but structure. So accountability, having somebody who was dedicated to my work and would give me genuine feedback, not just be nice to me and tell me that everything I was doing was great. Like those were the things that I was looking for. I had a friend, so when I was sort of beginning this journey, or when I had made the commitment to the Master of Fine Arts and I was in the middle of it, I had a girlfriend who lived down the street from me in military housing. She was the wife of an admiral. She was a retired Navy nurse. She was writing romance under a pen name. Yeah, it was cool. So she was kind of a mentor, and she shared with me, she was like, I started writing when I was on active duty, and and the way that I wrote was in bed at night after everything else was done. And she was like, I would stay up until 3 a.m. Well, so for me, like you, trying to find space in the house to write, when I was in the program, I was still on active duty. I had a child in diapers still at the time. And so the habit that I developed was to first of all work in bed. I wrote in bed, and I wrote in large spurts on the weekend. So you hear like people say, you need to sit down and write every single day. Button seat, right? Button chair. But I've had to learn to trust my own creative rhythms, because she was right. I was developing my habit, and that is my habit. I work in my bedroom most of the time, especially after COVID. That was not the plan. Right. I was supposed to be able to have the house to myself, and everybody was supposed to leave, and I did start off that way, but here we are, over the past year and a half, 2 years, I've developed this habit where I work in my room, and I work probably most productive when I just have a large swath of time, mostly on the weekends, to just plow through as much as I can. So it's just interesting to hear people's different, how you fit it in around life. So
Totally.
So you talked earlier about how you met your agent, but like, what does that relationship look like? How has it grown? And then can you talk about the relationship with the publishers once the book was sold, and the editors there?
So my agent is Alyssa Eisner-Hinken. She has her own boutique. When I signed with her, she was with Trident Media, which is a huge company. And then she went out on her own, I guess last year. She started Birch Path Literary, and Alyssa is amazing. She has a real sense of the market. So she can read something and she just can be like, this has so much commercial appeal. or this is a passion project. And if you really want to do it, great. And also you need to know that it's maybe not the most commercial. So she can really gauge all of that and is also so supportive of where I want my career to go. And I really appreciate that about her. She and I talk as regularly as I need to talk. She's available. She isn't like super editorial line level stuff, but she does offer big picture kind of critique of my work, and then is willing to go back and forth and say, yeah, I think we're there, or no, it's missing something. And when I met her at that intensive, I just really liked her as a person. And there were a bunch of her other clients who were also at that intensive, and I really liked them. And I felt like that was a good kind of marker for whether or not we were going to get along. And it's proven to be true that we just kind of clicked as people. Outside of that whole relationship, just like from talking about what our families were up to and everything else, I just feel like I got along with her, and that has been an important part of our relationship. So I was glad that I got this very unique way of meeting her and being able to kind of see what her personality was and know that we were going to work well together.
So this is something that is like a repeat theme in my conversations with people about how they find their agents. We talk a lot about the query letters and searching for agents that way, but so many agents themselves will say that the majority of their clients they met at conferences and workshops, because that's where you have the opportunity to see if there's any chemistry there on top of the quality of the work. So
that's so interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that, but I think that is so interesting to know. Huh. Yeah. I'm glad we're getting back to conferences and workshops then.
Yeah, me too. I'm headed to one next month at the CBWI, and I'm excited. So yeah, me too. Was there any point at which you considered self-publishing? And if you did or you didn't, tell me why.
I don't think that I did. And the only reason why is when I was in first grade, my dad wrote and illustrated a book, and he sent it off. This was like back in the early 90s, sent off like big poster boards through the mail. Actually, I think he did slides. He did pictures and on slides. He had these paintings that were posters in my house. That's why I'm recalling that. But then he took pictures on slides and sent his manuscript and sent off like big paper packets to all the big New York publishers. And he got rejected. And but I remember being very invested in this, like, my daddy's writing this book and he's sending it off to all the big New York publishers. And come to find out way too many years later that they had offered him an illustrator's position. And he was so miffed by the fact that they didn't like his writing that he didn't realize the opportunity. Anyway, that's a whole nother story of a lost opportunity. But all of that to say that and this is another example, like what we were talking about earlier, about the importance of seeing people do things and having windows into opportunities, that I saw my dad try for that. And so I thought, well, I can try for that too. Right. And so I don't know that self-publishing was never something that I thought I would do. It just, I first went to this other thing because it's what I had seen. And I'm sure that if it had taken me a whole lot longer, that I would have considered self-publishing. I know a lot of people have great success with self-publishing. And I think the point you made about reaching a specific audience is important, but also people that I know that have self-published their books are also their own marketing manager and their own publicity team. And while, yes, authors at traditional publishing do a lot of that work, I know myself well enough to know that I am not good at those things. And frankly, it's not really something I'm interested in becoming good at. And that's just me. So that's really why I landed where I did.
So you alluded earlier to your agent helping you achieve your writer dreams. What are those? What do you want your career to look like?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day, that I remember thinking to myself, I think all people, all writers probably have this. Like, if I could just get one book contract, I'll be totally satisfied and I'll never need anything to happen again. Or two book contracts, or maybe a third. And, you know, it's funny, I had a book contract that was almost a fourth book contract that was almost signed at the end of last year, and it fell apart at the last minute. And it was kind of demoralizing to have that go down the way that it did. And I honestly feel like I've been languishing a little bit, but my confidence took a big, I don't know, a big hit when that happened. And so I think that if we're not careful, we can always be moving the goalpost. And I will qualify, as a former competitive elite athlete, like moving the goalpost is an okay thing because it keeps us striving, and some of that is good. And yet, I want to be very aware that the little girl who grew up toting that journal around in the 4th grade would not believe this. And she is so proud of this person who did this thing. And so that I just have to keep reminding myself that's been done. And that's so much. So what I would like to do is to keep doing this in a way that doesn't feel like endless striving, but that feels like passion, and that feels like love, that feels like what you were talking about, giving the gift that is only the thing that I can give to the world, that is showing my children that they can do the same thing, that is bringing stories to young people that make them want to be readers and learners for the rest of their lives. So it's hard for me to remember that sometimes. And I think it's probably a challenge for anyone that's in a creative endeavor that also has a price tag attached to it, right? But I think it's that I have to continually remind myself that's my goal. So yes, would I love to, you know, get a novel published someday? Absolutely. I would love for someone to read my middle grade work and say, we should really publish this person. And that's been frustrating for me. But I am just going to keep doing this thing that I feel passionately about. And maybe, you know, one person will read any of the things that I've written and it will inspire them to chase their dreams. And that has to be enough at the end of the day.
Okay, so I should have asked you this in the first portion, but you've alluded to middle grade work that maybe you've already started. What are you working on now? Like what, if you're comfortable talking about?
Totally. I have a middle grade novel that it needs some revision, but I mostly finished when I was at Vermont, and I'm feeling a little precious about it, and I need to stop feeling so precious about it and just get the rest of the work done so that it can just get out in the world. I'm holding too tightly. So there's that project. And then I have like really, that's kind of an upper middle grade project. And then I have a young middle grade project based on my experience in 4-H, which is an adult experience in 4-H. I did not grow up in 4-H, but my kids are super involved in 4-H. And so it's kind of like an agricultural take. And so that's another middle grade project that I have. And I feel like I need to clean this slate and get those 2 projects off so that I can start working on some new stuff. But I really do feel like my voice trends sort of middle grade, which is why this picture book biography thing has been a good place for me to land. They kind of, I mean, I think that children of all ages and adults can enjoy these books, but I do think there's kind of a sweet spot for these picture book biographies, like 3rd to 6th grade sort of. And so it's kind of a middle grade audience. And I feel like that's really where my voice lands anyway. But yeah, so I've got some other things in the works, and hopefully someday they will be in book form. But if not, I've gotten them off my chest and heart, and that's got to be good enough.
I can totally relate to being precious about your work because I spent a couple years in that space and had to let it rest before I could go back to it and do the work that needed to be done, which is where I am now and almost finished, which feels really good. Yeah, no, I'm super close. Like I literally have one more scene that I need to sort out. And yeah, no, I'm in a good spot right now. I mean, but like any writer, I'm sure you've been through it. I ride the roller coaster on the daily of like, oh, I love my work, and then oh, nobody's gonna like this.
Put it in a trash can.
So good. And then no, it's so stupid. Like I just all day long, like I'm fighting that.
Why do we do that? Why do we do that?
I don't know. Like you just are like, it's so vulnerable. It's so, you at least have the validation of being published so far. Like, you know, before that happens, you just are so vulnerable.
It is. It's really vulnerable. You're right. That's what it is. That's why we do that.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm on the journey. I'm sharing it with the world.
I love it.
You know how it goes.
I can't wait to read it, Liz.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope somebody else wants to read it too.
They will.
I hope so. You know, you talked about before we started like the formal recording of this and we first got on the call, you mentioned this, and I use the phrase postpartum depression. You talked about like this little slump that you're going through. Like this just came out in March, the end of March, and you said that you had experienced it with your first book. Talk about what's going on there.
Yeah, so it's funny. So right before my debut, Indelible Anne launched last June, one of my best friends in town had her debut come out like early May. So it had been, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks. And we were on a panel together and we were talking, and she was talking about how, you know, she was so excited for me, but just get ready because there's this thing that happens. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, after a few weeks go by, you know, all of the excitement that's all over social media and all of the reviews and all of the attention and the parties and all of that, it just kind of stops because it's somebody else's turn. And I thought, well, that's very weird. That's not going to happen to me. And it did. And I'm grateful for my friend for telling me that, because I had no idea that I should be expecting that. It's just, there's so much. Here's the thing that I think I learned. There's so much pressure. People are saying like, do you want to do all of these interviews? Would you like to do a launch event? Are you going to have a party for yourself? Are you going to do a signing somewhere? What are you going to do? And so there are all these things that people are, and I actually had a publicist team. Random House Studio was so kind, and they hired an outside publicist to help me with my launch of Indelible Anne. And they did a ton of work, and I'm so grateful for those two women who did that work. But then there's this lull, and all these other people are getting their stuff published. And so that happens. Well, so for this time around, I didn't do a big party. I didn't do a bunch of the virtual stuff. So in the first round, I had a big party at my house, which was really great. And I'm so glad I did that. And I had a bunch of friends come over. We were mostly outside. It was really wonderful. And then for this one, I just really decided that I wasn't sure how many of the virtual things I was doing was really in the benefit of children. And I decided to focus most of my energy on getting in front of kids. And so I did my launch event at my niece's elementary school. They had me for a reading, and I went and I read to the kids, and we talked about books, and they did this little thing where they were their own story weavers, and we talked about how do you make a story, and you can be a writer if you want to. All you have to do is write. And that was so much more fulfilling this time for me. Instead of doing like virtual event after virtual event, I decided I didn't want the stress of that because I wasn't interacting with children that much. So I just got really specific about where I wanted to invest my time. And I think that has helped me not feel that lull quite so hard this time, because I've been more intentional about where I was putting my energy. But yeah, there's still a little bit there. And I think that the one nice thing is that I am going to Sweetwater at the end of the month. So I get to be around folks who get this book. And then I've been invited by library just outside of Austin to do their like very first inaugural literary festival also the next day. And I think that those two things are helping me like keep some momentum and feeling excited about this book. And but it's like choosing the events that I feel like are getting in front of children, helping me get back from, because I'm an extrovert, an introverted extrovert, but the thing that fills me up and doing this work is getting these stories to kids. And when I'm able to be intentional about that, it makes a big difference.
Well, so there's something that that I feel like ties into everything that I'm focused on, which, you know, I got into the social media world in earnest for this project. I was on Facebook almost from its inception because my classmates at grad school, my first grad school, decided to get on it in like 2007. So I was there, but it was kind of, it started off as a professional networking, and then it kind of turned into just like passive communication between friends that I was separated from across the country. But when I got into this, I got into social media for sure. And obviously, like I talked earlier about my base being sort of aviation. And so I built sort of this bubble in various social media communities of aviation. And through those, so many things, wonderful things are happening. People are posting, you know, really great stuff on all of the places, including TikTok, because I'm there.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I haven't figured that out yet. I'm on, but I don't know what I'm doing. So
I'm doing the best on TikTok. Because I just post videos of planes. And people who like planes like planes. So I don't know if they're my intended audience, but anyway, I'm there. But
that's so cool.
The point of that is like we can share stories in these moments in the world where they are a splash for the second and then they disappear. They disappear. The thing that is so wonderful about books is that this book is going to be there for years. And as you build your body of work and you continue to do your school visits over the next 10, the next 15 years, when you stack your books on the table in front of you, it will still be there. And so I recognize that there's probably like this, okay, it's over. I launched the book and now it's done. It's not. It's done. There. It's not done. It won't be done. Yeah. And so like that's what's really special to me about this medium, about the permanence of books, about those stories that are, like I told the story a while ago about how Patty Wagstaff was my hero when I was a teenager. Got to fly with her recently, and in preparation for that, read her biography, her autobiography, her memoir that I had on my shelf for 10 years. I hadn't read it. I'd carried it around all over the country and overseas, and then finally opened it. It was there waiting for me, and that story was there. So I'm sorry if there's that feeling, and I will, I'm sure, be able to commiserate with that someday.
Yes, you will. But this is like the best pep talk ever. How did I know that? I mean, I didn't know, but I should have known that I just needed to come here, because that's so wise and it's so true. And thank God that this story isn't going anywhere, because we've got to remember this, right?
Yeah, no, it's not going anywhere. It'll be here for a long time. And here's the great thing about children and young adults is that, like, I have this book, Violet the Pilot, on my shelf that just the other day I saw Mighty Girl had their great list of books that feature women in aviation, and Violet the Pilot was on it. I read that book to my daughter 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you constantly are refreshing your audience. Cliches aren't a thing to them. They don't even know what that is because it's new to them. So that's one of the other things that I love about writing for children and adults. Is that you always have this audience refreshing. So
totally. Anyway, that's great. Thank you for that. I love it. That's so great.
You're welcome. So we probably need to wrap up here soon because we both have kids in school that we have to go to.
Time for my writing time in the carpool pickup line.
I know. Well, so what resources do you recommend for people who want to publish picture books specifically?
Yes, picture book specifically. I think so. The librarian at my kids' preschool, when I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've got a story. I don't know what to do. Can you help me?" And she said, "Take a breath. These are the two things you need to do. You need to join your local chapter of SCBWI. That's where you're going to find your people. And then you need to go take a class." She said the classes are lots of places, but I would recommend the Writing Barn, is what she told me. And I did that. And now I will recommend that to you too. The Writing Barn has great classes from all kinds of people doing all kinds of, they're doing they've done adult memoir classes, they've done picture book classes, they've done middle grade classes, they do, all different kinds of stuff. So check out those offerings there. And of course, I think BCFA is fabulous, but I would also say that if you start a little, maybe SCBWI, Writing Barn, see how much you're really going for it. And I will always say this, that in order to be a writer, all you have to do is write. So,
Megan, was there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I don't think so. We talked a lot.
I
This was
know.
really great. And I am so grateful for this time together. It was really wonderful.
I am too. And as always, I am always like surprised by the depth and passion of the people that I get to talk to. And you're no different. And I'm so grateful for your time. And I can't wait. Hey, everybody, go buy all of Megan's books, the ones that are published and the ones that are coming, because your
Thank
young
you,
people
Liz.
are really going to love them. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Congrats,
Thank you.
Megan.
And thank you for all that you're doing for women in aviation. And I am just so grateful for you.
It's all my joy. So.